Hello everyone and welcome back. After my little faux pas last week of ordering the wrong parts, today we have the new bits to put this engine back together. So yes everyone, and thank you very much for joining me once again. As I said on the intro, we now have the new parts ready to be put back onto this engine, which means we can now get this engine fully back together, ready to be put back in the car. So here I have in my hand the brand new tone belt kit from Gates. It is a racing tone belt kit, which I'm now about to put on to this engine. Now, as you can see, I've actually already done a lot of the hard work, or a lot of the boring stuff and bolting stuff back together on this engine. So really it is a case of tone belt back on, then we can take the gearbox off and replace the clutch. Then this engine should pretty much be ready to go back in the car. So without any further ado, let's crack on and put this tone belt kit on, then we can start taking the gearbox off. Okay, so the tone belt is now on the car. I have checked it over, I've spun it over multiple times, and it's all good. I've reduced all the slack in the belt as well, so that is good to go. What I want to do now is put all the covers and everything back on this side. That way I can then fit the bottom pulley, I can fit the aircon compressor back on the front of the engine, I can then fit the two belts, tighten them up properly as well. That way, this side of the engine is all done, and all that remains is bolting all the final bits onto this block and then taking off the gearbox. Then that way we can take off the clutch and the flywheel, replace the main oil seal, put it all back together, and then it's ready to go back into the car once again. Okay, so everything is now back together on the side of the car. It's all timed up, everything is on, the alternator is on. The only downside is I have had one issue again with the belt size, and that is the air conditioning compressor one. But I'm not too worried about this, because even if it was back in the car, it's actually not too bad to get to, because the adjuster is literally just here. So I have ordered the belt, hopefully that'll come before I do put the engine in the car. However, like I said, if it does arrive whilst I'm putting the engine back in the car, it's not such a big deal. So everything is now pretty much bolted back on that I can get to, that I can do. The only thing I really want to tackle now is the clutch and the rear end main seals. So I'm going to get the engine crane once again on this so we can lift it up, and I'll take the gearbox off. Then we can take the clutch and flywheel off. Then we'll replace the oil seal, and then we can put all brand new clutch on. Okay, so that was a lot of hard work getting their gearbox off, and annoyingly I've broken the starter motor in the process, but that is a small price to pay for this kind of preventative maintenance, in my opinion. I am annoyed that I've broken the starter motor, but I'm really happy that we've gone down this route and replacing the clutch whilst it's out of the car. It makes sense, and this is the main reason why I'm really pleased that we've gone down this route. So if we look at this friction plate, you can clearly see there's some scoring sort of on the outer edges. So you've got inner edge here, it's more pronounced on this one, look. So inner edge, and then outer edge, it looks as though it's only been biting there. Also, these rivets obviously indicate how much wear, or can indicate how much wear. Starting to get a little bit flush with the friction material there. So if we now grab this new one, so again obviously the full face is nice and clean, but you can see how deep these rivets sit. So these ones here are the ones which are slightly higher on this side, but look how deep they sit. So again, really happy that we're going down this route. Like I said, it just makes good sense whilst the engine's out of the car. It makes it really easy for us to get to and do this. He says, and that was really difficult to get the gearbox off the engine. But anyway, what I want to do now is take off the flywheel, because behind the flywheel, or behind these bolts here, is a main oil seal. So if we can get that replaced, once again, that's another preventative measure. So hopefully that would stop any future oil leaks. And then we can start to bolt everything back on, new clutch, stick the gearbox back on, hopefully ready to go back in the car. Okay, so with the clutch and the flywheel off, we have now exposed the rear main end seal, which is the new one here. So it sits around here, which is the end of the crank. And like I say, it's just a really good preventative measure. Whilst we've gone down this route of replacing the clutch, might as well take off the flywheel and do this, especially as it came part of the kit. And it just is a really good preventative measure for any oil leaks in the future. So I'm going to get cracking, removing this one, give it all a good clean up, and then we can push this new one in its place. Okay, so that is the nice new shiny rear end main seal installed, which means we can now bolt the flywheel back on, bolt the new clutch in place, and put the gearbox back on. Okay, so there we go. The engine is now pretty much ready to go back into the car. It looks so much better, and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. Obviously, everything is now nice and fresh. There's also been a few things that I've done along the way which you haven't quite seen, like I've replaced the oil filter ready for the new oil. I've replaced all the spark plugs, and there is still a couple of bits that I'm waiting to arrive. So the thermostat, which I showed you in the last video, was absolutely manky, so I'm still waiting for the new one to turn up, so I haven't done that up just yet. Obviously I'm going to need to buy a new aircon compressor belt because the one I bought is the wrong size, so that needs to be done as well. Other than that, that's pretty much the engine side of things ready to go. There are still a few vacuum lines and stuff that I'm going to plumb in along the way again, but there are a few other bits like these CV boots. Now I have split this in half because I had to try and get it off of the hub and off of the gearbox whilst I was pulling it out of the car, and it wouldn't come off from the hub, so I've just split it in half. But the boot was already split and was already showing signs of oil coming out of it, so I have got two new CV boots because also the outer side on the driver's side had also gone as well. So I've got them to replace. There's also the clutch line. I had to cut that when I took the engine out because it was just C-solid on the car. So obviously now the engine's out of the way, I'm going to make sure that I get rid of the little section that I've got left in the engine bay. And then I've got this lovely braided version to go in its place. So there's still a few little bits that I'm going to have to do whilst I'm putting this engine back in the car. However, the main bulk of work is all done, and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. And hopefully, that's now also going to give this car many years of trouble-free motoring. Obviously, all those oil seals and stuff, that should now prevent any leaks from occurring. Same with the rocker cover gasket and the sump gasket as well, because those are the two main ones that do seem to fail. So they are now done, which means that hopefully no more oil leaks. I hope you'll agree that this does look a million times better than when I took it off the car, and I can't wait to get it back in, get it running. However, I am going to need to try and find an exhaust manifold, which is really proven tricky. So until then, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.